SASI and the National Treasury held a panel discussion at the Maponya Mallin Soweto to discuss savings and the sandwich generation. The discussion highlighted new research on the financial challenges that this group commonly referred to as black tax experience. Acting CEO of SASI, Gerald Mwandiambira, and one of the panelists, Ayabonga Cawe, from Rethink Africa, who is an expert on black tax, are here to tell us more. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me in the studio. Maybe just to enlighten some of our viewers very quickly, let's talk about what the sandwich generation is all about and black tax. Maybe let me start with you very, very quickly, Ayabonga. What is black tax?
So I think black tax is a sort of a cultural and also a financial phenomenon where a lot of young people who are sort of the first in their families to sort of attain higher education and training and are able to provide an income for the household are then expected to really sort of pursue those responsibilities and really look after the entire family. But as you can imagine, that occurs at the expense of savings and investment. But also, in addition to that question around non-nuclear household responsibility, there's also the challenge of people that come in particular from black communities who haven't acquired the assets or haven't inherited the assets relative to their white counterparts, and therefore have to spend the early part of their careers really acquiring these assets rather than actually saving for intergenerational transfer of wealth.
And it's interesting to me what Ayabonga mentioned, because we often talk about this discussion around saving, but we're not really looking at what the foundational issues are we really, Gerald? Because we are saying save, 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 but if you're in that state of acquiring, which I think is a natural process of life, sure, and this developing this household, that we sometimes engage in the wrong conversation, don't we?
I think we do. I think if you look at the statistics, South Africa does have pretty dire savings numbers. If you look at the latest Reserve Bank quarterly bulletin, March 2015, savings is down at minus 2.5% of disposable household income, which means that you're spending 2.4% rather of your disposable household income saving. So you're eating into your saving. It's a minus. It's a negative. On the converse side, you're looking at debt servicing at 78.3% of disposable household income, meaning 78% of your money is paying off debt. So a lot of people are simply in that position where they think they can't save. I'm actually a proponent of the argument that if you know how to save, there's always a way. And a lot of the time it's around your financial discipline, the choices you make, the coffee you take off the shelf, that 3 Rand, 4 Rand saved, multiplied by 30 items, that's a saving. And we need to try and broaden the discussion around savings beyond just money. It's a lifestyle choice. Also on the other side, if you want to solve a savings problem, you either increase your income or you reduce your spending. We also need to talk to the guys who make us spend more, the financial institutions and the things we buy, to find ways of saving through them. So, for example, if you have this black tax where I have a household, I've got young children, and I'm trying to catch up with my white counterparts at work. At the same token, I'm trying to service and look after a home, ekasi maybe, for example. How can I be allowed to save? And sometimes it's a matter of companies and products being developed which accept that this phenomenon does exist. Because at the moment we have a scenario where it's almost blind. Everybody is ignoring that over 20% of South Africa is in this position. We need to have products which basically address...
That actually speaks to
that. If you, for example, are the big earner, you've got your platinum, black card, whatever you want to call it. You've got 400 swipes. You'll never use 400 swipes on your card. But your cousin in Soweto has got 10 swipes, and after he's exhausted them, he's paying whatever, maybe 6-8 Rand a swipe. So let's find ways of making that work.
Let me bring Ayabonga into this conversation. You were part of the panel discussion in the wake of National Savings Month. What was your contribution to that discussion? Because I do think the fact that you're having this discussion in Soweto, for me, is very pioneering.
Look, I think, as the sort of the moderator of the panel, Clema Wisa, indicated, the discussion was largely a solutions-focused discussion. So I think on the panel we're sitting with a range of people from the financial services side, but also from the Stokvel side, to really say, how do we begin to use the institutions that we already have in our communities? So if you look at the communities that are largely affected by black tax, there is indeed a savings culture in those communities. But it's how do you begin to speak about that savings culture and have it in conversation with the more formal and traditional financial services institutions. But also I think there was a clear move towards saying, let's move away from just saving through our stokvels and other institutions that we have at a local level, saving for consumption or saving for funeral policies, where we plan more for death than we actually do for the lives of those we leave behind. But let's actually begin to save from an intergenerational perspective, where I say, in as much as I'm going to save now, but in this time horizon, there's no possibility of me actually taking out these savings, because they're actually going to mean that I'm not going to be in a position as a beneficiary or inheritor of those savings, where we're still speaking about black tax.
I'm hearing this conversation in my ear coming from the media room, and I think Lebo was saying now, where does the money come from? But there was something interesting you mentioned, General, and just very quickly, just getting comments from you. There is money floating around. People are going to takeaways. They're spending hundreds of rands eating out. And how do we make sure that we change the way we also advertise and drive key messages to those people? I love what you're saying, that we're saving for death. We're not saving for life. So all the ads are driven to those communities around that. But there isn't ads running on TV right now saying save, 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 and this is how you do it.
I think the money is definitely there, because there are people who are formally employed. There's money in circulation, and it is how we use this money. So with our partners, I know, for example, with Nedbank, Old Mutual, they are having this discussion and inviting us to start having these deliberations. So we get to solutions. We know there's a savings problem, but that problem is, yes, don't do the takeout. Rather, save that 20 rand. And another big obstacle to saving is people have big ambitions. People want to start saving 1,000 rand a month, 1,000 rand, 2,000 rand a month. No. Show me you can save 50 rand for 5 months. Show me you can save 100 rand for 5 months. It takes 21 times of an action before it becomes a habit, and then it can get into your character and your personality. So start small. A lot of people, because they are so far behind, they feel, I must do something big. I must save 5,000.
I think you've hit the nail
the
on
next
the head.
lump sum I get, I'm saving it. No, start with 100 rand. Also, when you go into that supermarket, look be wiser in how you save. And us at SASI, for example, we're saying, look, there's an inflation basket, okay? Let's create a savings basket, a number of products which we can endorse and say, these are the best products you can get value for money.
I'm going to give you the final word. We've got 20 seconds. People want to find out more. Where can they go? Where can they learn more? Quickly.
Yeah, just to maybe add on to what Gerald is saying, I think this is the kind of advocacy that we need to mainstream the idea of savings, and to also mainstream the idea that it's not so difficult. I don't have to be putting aside 3,000 rand a month. To hear more about this, I think I would say follow the South African Savings Convention on Twitter, but also follow at Rethink Africa as well, at Rethink_Africa, where we'll be running an extensive advocacy campaign around the black tax issue.
I love this conversation. We'll pick it up again. Gerald Mwandiambira and Ayabonga Cawe, shedding some light on the National Savings Month and how we can remove dents from our pockets. Very simple stuff. Google it. We'll take an ad break. We're back.